our next panel, it is about packaging products safely and responsibly, which is a very big deal as we build out this AU market. Our guests are Michael Markarian, founder of and CEO of Contempo Specialty Packaging. They're actually out here today. Louis Pilonieta, all right. Sales manager of Cannapa by Paxiom. Alain, co-founder and CEO of Leafypack. Angelberto Ferrer, CTO and CMO of Hemper, and the moderator of this panel is Steve Blank Jr., is the founder of Dolo Media. Enjoy your panel, everybody.
There's a wealth of information and insight and expertise on this panel today, so in order to give some context to that wealth of expertise that's here before you, we're going to give each of these guys an opportunity to briefly introduce themselves. I'll start all the way at the end and we'll work our way back. Mr. Michael Markarian, please.
All right, thank you. My name is Michael Markarian. I'm the CEO of Contempo Specialty Packaging. We've been in the cannabis packaging business over 6 years. Our parent company, over 40 years working with top jewelry and fashion brands. We transitioned into cannabis, doing beautiful CR packaging that is also sustainable. And I also have a podcast, the Sustainable Packaging Show podcast. So looking forward to sharing some experiences with everyone today.
So hi everybody, my name is Luis Pilonieta. I'm the sales director at Cannapa by Paxiom. We manufacture equipment, automation that helps producers lower their cost of production while maintaining great packaging and hopefully increasing your margin cost.
I'm Angel. I'm the CTO and CMO of Hemper and also our supplier, you know, a little green logo at the bottom of everyone's badge. You know, our background is huge in supplements and manufacturing, and we're producing over 100 million pre-roll cones a month now in our facilities, and hopefully can bring some expertise on sustainability and what's going on in the industry now.
I am Alain. I am the co-founder and CEO of Leafypack. We are also an automation supplier for the cannabis industry, and we help cannabis companies output efficiency and lower overhead costs.
Right on. So we're here to talk about the various elements within safety and responsibility of packaging cannabis products. Obviously, so many of us are here today and this weekend to build business or begin businesses. And in order to kind of open this conversation, I'd like to just talk a little bit about how we build brands and businesses through packaging and labeling. And I'll, again, lean into Michael to open this one up.
I think the largest takeaway is that cannabis is different in many ways, but it's also not different in many ways from other CPG industries. And when people treat cannabis differently, that can have some negative ramifications. You can enter the cost or the race to the bottom, as they call it. So I look at successful cannabis packaging, just a couple tips or thoughts that I think are important. Number one is to differentiate. How do you make yourself different from the other products on the shelf, using unique colors, unique shapes, using the same principles that have worked for other brands and other industries and not reinventing the wheel? I like to think of Patron. There's a reason they don't just use a plastic bottle. It's part of their story. So that's sort of point number one. Point number two that I see often is cannabis brands just having their logo and then the word vape cartridge or the word premium flower, but not doing any storytelling. If you look at other brands, they tell you about the founder, about the story, why we do what we do, why our ingredients are special, and using the packaging space is a great opportunity to tell that story. And then we can talk a little bit later about sustainability, but I think that's also a great way to differentiate your brand. So my number one theme will be to differentiate and make yourself different and build that brand rather than joining that race to the bottom, which doesn't end good for anyone.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. As it compares, Luis, with regard to efficiency and approaching those creative aspects of building brand through packaging and labeling, can you speak to the production side of that outlook and efficiency?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, Michael brings a great point. People want to create a brand. People want to tell a story. People want to really show the differentiator between my next consumer and myself and a producer, and hopefully helping the end user make that purchase decision at the purchasing point, right? However, though, there's additional elements that people have to consider about, and we want to make sure that we're compliant to all the stakeholders that are among the process, right? And to that, there is also the limitation and the never-ending battle between marketing and production. So you're going to think about, hey, I want to tell my brand, I want to be funky, I want to differentiate myself, I want to show a package that will, grab or allow the end user to say, I want this. However, though, those funky-looking packages sometimes are very difficult to automate and to have high increase efficiency on the automation side of things. So having that, not being able to use automation as a way of reducing your overall production cost, and as Michael was saying, he used the word, the race to the bottom. So the race to the bottom, only the low-cost producers, in my opinion, are the ones that are going to be surviving at the end of the day. And to be able to have a low-cost production process, you have to automate. And that's when I think that you got to be conscious about, yes, building a brand, telling a story, but at the same time, selecting the right package at the beginning, because you may start by packaging by hand, you may start by doing a manual process, but if you select the right package right from the beginning, it's going to help you add automation when you're ready for it. So I think that that's something that everybody has to keep in mind.
Absolutely. Angel, whether it's the creative approach to storytelling through packaging and labeling, the production side of that conversation, or the dynamic between the two, give us your 2 cents.
Yeah, no, I think if you really look at it, the brands that do great at packaging and branding are, go to your closet, right? Which one of those packages did you keep? Right? I'm pretty sure, anyone in here that has an iPhone, you definitely have boxes in your closet. You open that packaging experience, you love the Apple product, you love the whole journey, it communicates to you, you know what I mean? So right now what we're seeing in the California market is, we do obviously a lot of cones, a lot of packaging, and brands are literally bringing us someone else's packaging, like, oh, I want this. They don't necessarily know what they want. They don't necessarily know what they're looking for. They're just trying to copy what everything else is on the shelf. And in the California market, you're seeing, like, you go to the store, you're looking at pre-rolls, oh, everyone's got the same jar. Everyone's got the same color top. Everyone's got the same box. Like, no one's actually trying to really innovate, right? No one's actually trying to do anything different. But the brands that are doing it right, like, there's brands like 710 Labs. Like, personally, I have 40 jars sitting at home, like, empty. But I love their jars. Their UV jars are great. They're, half-ounce jars are amazing. But if a brand does very well at putting their branding together, even on the automation side, I'm pretty sure they could definitely take a jar, look at the supplement industry. It's all automated. Those are capsules going into a bottling cap and you're out the door. So if you look at other industries of what they're doing and how they're also, people were saying, look at supplements, look at alcohol because they're restricted space. Supplements is very super adjacent to what we're doing in cannabis, and everything they do in packaging, whether it's Mylar bags for protein and, jars for, tub jars for everything else. So there's a lot of similarities that we can take from their industry, bring it into cannabis, and match that in terms of great packaging. If great packaging, great branding, that means people are keeping it. People want to take it with them, put it in their bags, put other, I know people that literally take their jars of flour that they bought from another brand and they're mixing it with 2 or 3 other brands inside of it just because they love the brand and they love the impact they received.
Yeah, if I can just add one more point to that, because we're very much aligned in the way that we look at it. And the story that you're talking about with marketing versus operations is the story of my life and the battle between how to make that work. But I think the key is differentiating yourself somehow. It's not all about packaging. It's not just about packaging. People sometimes, you have to ask that question honestly to yourself, how are you going to be different? People say, well, Cookies uses Mylar bags. That shows that you don't need differentiated packaging. And I'm saying, are you Burner? Do you have his story? Do you have his following? Think about how these brands are successful. You can't just look at their packaging. You've got to find a way to differentiate yourself and stand out, or you will enter that race to the bottom. And that's not just my opinion. You look at what's happening in all these states. Operators that are struggling, our customers that are struggling who didn't do this, who went with more generic options. It's a real thing that everyone should think about while they're getting started.
If I can add, actually, one way of building the brand is about consistency. So as an end user, you don't want to have a great product today and consume it, and then next day, next week when you got it, it's completely different. It doesn't taste the same. It will not provide me with the experience that I remember it. If you don't give consistency to your end users, your brand is going to be abolished. Like, people are going to boycott you.
100%.
So the way that automation can play a great role is by ensuring quality, consistency, allowing for your product to taste the same, to be the same. So every time that, whether you do edibles or you do flower or you do pre-rolls, your end user is saying, I know what I'm getting. When I go buy that brand, I know what it tastes. I know what it is. I know the type of product, the consistency that I can get out of it. And it's not a jeopardy. So I think that that is very, very crucial and a great point when adding automation and consistency to that point and building your brand long term.
Yeah, you're fulfilling that brand promise. If you don't fulfill the brand promise, then
got it.
nothing else matters. And I fully
Interesting
agree.
to touch on the consistency aspect, right? Because there's a brand in California that they took their brand story with the same packaging that everyone else has on the shelves, and their brand story that it's virgin weed, where they don't touch the plant. They don't engage with it, like literally the fully automated process, so it's super consistent on every draw, every strain, everything, and they crush it. Like, they created their own brand story that, here, you know, I want to get something that's going to make me work, or, you know, I want something that's going to put me to sleep, or anything like that, that everyone's trying to start getting into now and using these feelings instead of using, you know, a candy strain name like, yeah, I'm going to get some Fruity Loops XXOOG. Like, no one knows what the hell that is, but that's a, you know, fine, entertaining name. But no, give me some health. Give me some happy. Give me some, you know, fire, some heavy. You know, like, those are the names that make you feel and connect closer with the product of what you're actually getting.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, when you're talking about recreational, you want to have that. Now, when you're talking medical, I mean, you want to be prescribed something, you want to ensure that that product is going to do what it's going to do. So that's where, like, consistency, ensuring traceability, and again, we jump into a different topic when we talk about that. But, you know, building a brand, like, there's a reason why you take Tylenol when you have a headache. There's a reason for it. Because you know that it's going to do what you expect it to do. And it shouldn't be any different when you're prescribed cannabis and you're going to be intaking that product, you know?
It's the same experience every time.
Just touching on the brand thing, last point, because I know none of us brought it up, just taking care of your customers. Customer servicing, like, that's building a brand. No matter what you do, no matter the consistency you put on the table, great customer service goes a long way. Taking care of your customers, whether on the B2B side or direct-to-consumer side, be there for them, be part of the community, be involved with them, engage with them, you know, open, you know, feedback loops so that you're constantly communicating, because the way that any business, no matter how you look at it, is you're going to scale based on the relationships in the community you build on the direct-to-consumer side, or even on the B2B side. Like, hey, I need, you know, 10 million pieces of something tomorrow. Cool, no problem, I'll get it done. But can we forecast together so I can make sure every month I'm delivering on time to you? Why not? Build that better customer service. That's how your brand is going to go from zero to hero very quickly.
Awesome. Alain, anything to add to the brand building, production, or the dynamic between the two?
I really think that, honestly, I think at the end of the day, like, the experience is really what matters in cannabis. I think that most customers, when they go to dispensaries, you have that one shot to really kind of impress them with their brand, their packaging, and what Luis said earlier about consistency in the product. That entire, you know, the experience, what Angel said about the Apple thing, where, you know, what do you keep along, you know, in your closet with you? I have some pre-roll tins that are amazing. I keep my pre-rolls in there, and you know, it's just, you know, when you have things like that, that really actually resonates with the customer.
Let's, we talk a lot about safety, responsibility, and the concepts that can apply to being responsible to our community, responsible to the earth, and we're creating and building businesses. We have a responsibility to ourselves and to our families and the people that depend on us to make the right decisions around scaling and investments. All of that to say, and I'll start with you, Luis, can you speak to efficiency and the automation side of the game, people walking up to your booths, seeing these big machines, looking and saying, you know, it cost me $1 million to get in the game and get a piece of equipment like this. At what threshold or at what point is it appropriate for me to consider these kinds of things? Where's the point that I can responsibly say I'm ready to scale?
Yeah, and a great question, because I believe that there is truly a misconception of knowing I need $1 million or multi-million dollars to be automated, which is not necessarily the option. Like you want to start with, again, providing that consistency. And sometimes, operators, unfortunately, cannot be as reliable as a machine. That's the reality of it. When you have people doing or packaging either your pre-rolls or your flour into jars, they're not going to be as accurate at 8 o'clock in the morning as they are going to be at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's just human nature. Now, with that said, it doesn't have to be $1 million. Like, automation can start from an entry-level point. So, especially here in New York, when we have, in the last 48 hours, we get a lot of micro producers and micro growers, which again, they're not the size of Canopy, they're not the size of, like a big producer, say, and that's okay. And it's okay not to be that big, and you don't have to, but you can start with an entry-level automation, and I think that most of our clients start with, again, the weighing or the counting, which again will give you the consistency that you want to build your brand and to build your product. And then it doesn't have to be expensive or as expensive as people think. So that's a misconception. Now, on the other end, there's people that don't have the option. And what I mean by that is, like, if you are a GMP manufacturing supplier and you want to have a GMP facility. So, for example, some of our clients are exporting to Europe, or they have to be EU GMP compliant. Then doing it by hand is not an option. So then, what do you do then? So, but it doesn't say that you have to be full-blown out automation. So that's when, being equipment that is NTEP certified, that is capable of producing certain reporting, that you can keep for your quality control, for traceability standpoint, when you're producing a certain lot number and a strain, and to know what happened there, what was the accuracy given to that particular package. That's what those type of clients or producers are looking for. And again, it doesn't have to be $1 million. So I think that if you have that in mind, I invite you to learn more. Help us educate you on the automation side of things, and see that it's not as complicated as what people think it is.
Absolutely, Angel.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, where when it comes to the automation aspect, right, and how much it cost. One thing that we did during Hemper, our CFO was like, we have to buy some boxes, right? And a lot of people don't understand packaging. It costs money. Everything in your whole process costs something, right? So they were saying, well, this MOQ, it's like 5,000 pieces. And we're like, yeah, well, it's 5,000 pieces. Let's just buy it. Well, the question came up, we got into business for a reason, right? So if you're getting into business and you're trying to achieve a goal and sell some units, buy the 5,000. That's the MOQ, just buy it. If the MOQ is 10,000, MOQ is 100,000, your goal is to sell that. So if you personally are already questioning that aspect of, oh, I need to buy 5,000 pieces, it's too many pieces to buy, then please rethink what you're trying to do. You're in this to make a business. You're in this to put food on not just your own table as an executive or a business owner, but also on the employees, the responsibility of the employees you have under you. So really put that effort forward and really look at some of the automation equipment. Like, you don't necessarily, we literally just got a box corrugating machine just because, wow, we're sitting here paying, 30, 40 grand a year for someone to just make boxes all day in our warehouse, right? So we just finally got our first machine, and, we've been in business for a while. So if you really look at it, it's you don't have to automate the whole process. Automate one portion and just take another portion and take another portion and just keep going.
And then another thing that people don't think about when adding equipment, the machine is always there, shows up on time, it comes to work, and it doesn't have attitude. Things that your employees or temp workers are going to give you at the end of the day. And one of the biggest concerns that we have here with manufacturing process is just labor scarcity. People are just not available. And when you do find someone, even you pay them whatever they ask you, they just don't show up. Then what do you do then? Then adding automation again is something that will ensure that you have product on time, as you were saying. You want to satisfy your clientele, whether business to business or whether the government or whatever that is. You want to make sure that you send when you said you would. No different what happened to a producer that at Walmart misses their delivery. they get cut off, then what happens, you know?
Yep. Like right now, for example, we're working on the C-store side, and we're trying to integrate with SRP integrations, this and that. And it's like, oh, you know, we have 30 documents we have to submit just to send you one shipment. And it's got to be labeled a certain size, it's got to be a certain height, it's got to be go through a drop testing, this and that. Like, going to automation is the route. Like, even, you know, I definitely want to touch on the GMP aspect, because a lot of people don't really think of that very much well. They're just like, yeah, I'm just going to go on Alibaba and buy from a random Chinese factory, right? It doesn't need to be GMP certified. It doesn't, you know, I don't need any of that. But like, so you don't care if, you know, someone in China or wherever in the world you're buying your product from, there's little kids actually making your product. That's unacceptable.
Hey,
you know, sustainability-wise, like, be GMP, be clean about the whole your whole supply chain process.
Yeah.
Right. People right now aren't caring, but just as us as an industry to mature and become more adult in this, we have to really understand that. Like, look at Nike and these guys. They're looking into their supply chains because they allowed children to do everything at one point. Right. They all got caught up.
That's a way to differentiate too.
Yeah, it's 100%. You know, we made the effort to be GMP certified, get all these ISO certifications, just to be able to offer the proper material for cones.
Yes, and you bring a great point. I mean, pricing is attractive, right? Like, there's always, like, when they say, hey, pricing, you see that is very cheap, then you should be concerned too when it's very cheap, you know? Like, you know, like, you're concerned when it's very expensive, but you should also be concerned when it's super cheap, because you, at the end of the day, you're paying what you get for, right? You know, that's at the end of the day. Now, when you said, hey, GMP certifications and the documentation, so now, being a multifaceted company is like, there's some people that say, hey, we're here for cannabis, I've all done cannabis, and all what I do is cannabis, or what I've done is cannabis. Then I should be concerned about too, because again, we've been in business for 30 years. We have serviced the pharmaceutical, nutraceutical companies for many, many years. So when we talk about traceability, compliance, IQ, OQ documentation, things that are topics that you gotta be familiarized with at the end of the day, because that's ultimately where the legislation is gonna happen. So for example, like, all of our Canadian clients are gonna talk about right from the get-go, are you GMP certified? Like, can you provide me with this equipment or this documentation that you're saying?
Send me that lot number.
300 document fully done. Well, call Alibaba. They're not gonna give you that, I'm telling you, you know? That's where, again, pricing is attractive. But no different than marriage, okay? You don't get married to the first chick that came by your side, or the one that it was always available. You know, like, you wait for the chick that it was right for you. And that's what I say. So do your due diligence, check who supplier is going to be at the end of the day you're marrying to, because they have to be there the long term. That's what I have to say.
100%.
Hold on. Got some claps for that. Alan, whether it's the concepts around being responsible to yourself, your business, and all of those that depend on it, or anything that came up as a result of introducing that question, including making responsible decisions around the person you marry. Anything to add?
I mean, Luis said it all, really. I think at the end of the day, you know, you really do have to do your homework on a lot of these things. And I know that cannabis, you know, capital isn't as easy to get as it used to be. So you have to really do your homework. And I know Alibaba is cheap, but at the end of the day, you're not going to get automated equipment, you know, cones, boxes, packaging. You're not going to get these special support that companies like us, like all of us here, would actually provide to you guys. And so, you know, you really have to understand that you have a responsibility not only to your company, but to your customers as well. Have high quality products. What happens when your machines go down? What happens when your products don't get delivered on time? What happens if your packaging doesn't meet requirements for legislative, you know, laws and things? So there's a lot of things that people don't think about when they're packaging or when they're buying their machines, or, you know, whatever it is they're doing. At the end of the day, they want to go with cheap, but I think that if you really do your homework and research what you need to do, there are ways to find, find cheaper options to either reduce touch points, reduce labor, plenty of other things to do.
We talked a little bit about changes around PCR, post-consumer recycled materials being incorporated in packaging in the state of New York in 2024. I'll go to you, Michael, if you can kind of elaborate on that and speak to how it pertains to the world of packaging and the decision-making around it.
Absolutely. So sustainability, naturally something that's on everyone's minds, and the state of New York has taken a position to actually put requirements in their cannabis laws about sustainability of their packaging. And in their guidelines, they talk about a number of things, including use of recycled content if you're using plastic, reuse models, et cetera. But the one thing that's really stuck to date is that starting next year, if you're using plastic packaging, you need to use at least 25% PCR. PCR, post-consumer recycled plastic, meaning it's gone through the blue bin or some other consumer-facing recycling system. So I think that's a good start. The state of Vermont has also put it in their cannabis packaging regulations. I would say those two states are the pioneers, if you want to call it, regarding putting the regs in the sustainable packaging. But is that enough? I think of checking the box is when the regulator says you have to do this, and then the brands go with 25% just to meet the regulations, and you can do that in any plastic packaging nowadays. But what I encourage people to do is really express their creativity, and again, the word differentiate, I hope you don't get tired of hearing it, but I want to reinforce it. This is a way to differentiate yourself. So imagine everyone in the market who's competing with you is just hitting that 25% PCR mark, and there is a certain environmental impact. But you, on the other hand, are using tin packaging, or you, on the other hand, are using home compostable packaging, or you, on the other hand, are using hemp fiber boxes, 100% hemp fiber, don't cut down any trees. These all happen to be Contempo products, but these are minor details. You're going to differentiate yourself, and it's all part of the story that you can tell. So look at what the regs are mandating, but then going one step beyond, this is a chance to separate yourself. Just think in your own life, do you care about the sustainability of the packaging of the products that you're buying? Maybe it's very inconvenient to just shop for products in sustainable packaging and you're busy, so you just buy the products. But wouldn't you rather shop for brands that actually care? So if you believe that yourself, then put that on the marketplace, and I think all brands, not just in New York, will see great results from doing that.
So, okay, to add to what Michael was saying, I think that sustainability is a great fancy word that everybody likes to hear, but not everybody wants to pay for. That's the reality. So when we talk about sustainability, recycling, packaging, right now there's different avenues that people can go with. Right now they were talking to me about hemp packaging as well. Like new technologies that are out there, but they're not economically feasible to do mass production. So when you do that, then if you're a producer, say, yes, it's okay, and now you got to think about philanthropic philosophy saying, hey, listen, I love the environment, I love it. A lot of cannabis consumers are thinking or mindful of the environment. I get that. But when you go and make the purchasing decision at the dispensary, if your package is $1 more, 50 cents more, $3 more, are they willing to pay that just for the package that you're getting? Are they? And if the answer is yes, let's find out, because at the end of the day, that's the ultimate decision factor. If people are willing to pay, producers are going to put it on. But if you think about the cost of the flower, the price of the flower is coming down. So you're not able to sell flower for the same price that you used to years ago, meaning that those margins are gone, disappeared. How can you make more margins? And are you going to put it now into a more expensive packaging that maybe your consumer is not willing to pay? That's where, it comes to the silver lining point that, yes, you want to be environmentally friendly, conscious about it, building a brand, telling a story, but you still have to be efficient,
It would be nice if the environmentally friendly aspect came with, yeah, if you guys are environmentally friendly, we'll give you a 5% kickback on your taxes.
Yeah,
Let's be real.
yes.
I'm hearing a lot of people talking about that, actually.
Yeah.
3 different conversations, and we haven't spoken about it. And that's starting to gain some steam from some very influential people, and I think that could be something. And I do want to talk, we're actually going to maybe touch on that later if we have a little time, but to the point that you're making about prices are dropping, we need to save, I do want to make one point, because I think everyone should think about this. There's 2 factors. There's your gross margin, how much you're making per unit, which will be less if you use sustainable packaging. But then there's your market share, how much money you're making and how much of the market you've got. So you've got to balance those 2 things. If you just optimize, it's like the saying, do you want to own 100% of a grape or 10% of a watermelon, whatever they say on Shark Tank or these different shows. So if you just only optimize around cost reduction, you may do so at the cost of alienating your customers, and other people are moving into sustainable packaging, matching their values, and the business goes to them. So your point's very valid, but I want to point out the other side, and this is something that the brands can make the decision personally. Maybe you want to be the low-cost, everyday supplier, and then that probably is the right way of thinking. But if you want to sell a premium product, you can't just look at the cost per unit. You have to look at the market share that you're going to capture as a result of building that brand and being different.
Or you could have different segmentations within your brand. So for example, you can have a high quality product with a high quality packaging, recyclable, tailored to that type of consumer, and almost like a no name, or like a generic brand which will be tailored to the everyday consumer as well. So it's no different. Again, like people think, and I think that Michael said it right. Like I think people want to pretend that cannabis is a brand new, completely different product, but it isn't. Like at the end of the day, it still is a consumer product. People have been selling food for decades or centuries. People have been selling medicine for centuries. And I think that there's lessons learned to be taken from there on how to market that product. And no different. I got chocolate companies that they sell premium chocolate at a very high margin, and the same type of chocolate, different packaging. You find it in the Dollar Tree. But to different consumers at the end of the day.
Yep, it's the private labeling and being, the great value brand versus the actual like Frito-Lay, right?
You got it.
That's exactly what's going on. Like if you're in cannabis and you only have one brand and you're trying to be very broad, I highly suggest like micro down, figure out your niche. There's great value opportunity, then there's high-end opportunity. There's that people are looking for nice packaging, or people looking just for consistency. It's all there.
You got it.
Anything to add, Alain?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people are, they don't understand that there's a whole Kirkland brand aspect of things, right? So, the Trader Joe's things, you're going to white label a co-pack for other people, just the same way. And you're using essentially the same product. But at the end of the day, you're going to have some very high premium brands, and you'll have some, I don't want to call them, value brands, but, the packaging isn't going to look as nice. But
Every day is my choice word.
and I think, as it adds to that is that, do you want to pay for sustainability?
Maybe we can use these last few minutes to continue to unpack, no pun intended, the conversation around tax incentivization around sustainability concepts.
Yeah, I can kick it off briefly, and then I want to get your vision for this, because there's a lot of people thinking about the same thing. So cannabis is heavily taxed, newsflash. So this creates an opportunity where most brands in other markets, maybe they can't spend that extra 25 cents. If it's a dollar bag of chips, spending 25 cents extra on sustainable packaging might not be practical. But if you can put that 25 cents towards a tax credit, so that we're not only punishing, there's two ways of looking at it. You can, the carrot and the stick, you can offer an incentive for people going with outside the box sustainable packaging, or you can do a plastic tax, which is sort of the stick version. So, and in cannabis, because it's hyper-focused to one state or controlled to one state, we can actually optimize the packaging options that we give the greatest incentive based on the infrastructure that's available within that state. So for example, in a state like California where industrial composting is readily available, we might offer a higher tax credit to that packaging versus, let's say, where I'm from, Rhode Island, or I think New York is probably the same, we might offer less of an incentive for that option. So because I think cannabis is perfect because it's state-focused, you can tailor the incentive to the infrastructure that product packaging is ultimately going into. And perhaps this could become a model that would create momentum, create business, and reduce costs of those sustainable options to make them more practical, because just like anything else, as more people use it, costs drop. As costs drop, it's not just for select brands, it can be for everybody. So that's at least part of my idea, but I'll stop there.
Well said. Sorry, just a sec. Sorry to interrupt. Go right ahead, miss.
I do have a question. So we find that cannabis has adult use packaging, which is really, really hard to open. Have you guys figured out better technology, especially for medical patients that have arthritis or any challenges opening packaging? Because I find that adult use packaging is very difficult to open, even with the instructions on there.
You know what's interesting about that is that the requirements are the reason for that. So we just recently did some CR packaging for tubes, and sent it in, everything. The little kids couldn't open it, but adults apparently can't open it. Like older people can't open it. We're like, okay, well, like it's pretty easy, but we're trying to figure out, other alternatives to try to open actual CR packaging. Maybe it should just be on the exit bag versus the actual product. Because them opening an exit bag, taking a knife, open it up, you got your product, great. Like, you're going to store it up high, take it as however you do it at home. Because right now, everyone buys medicine, the bottle's CR, you take that home, you're opening, you're putting your own packaging, like, you're good to go. Like,
And
alternatives.
it also makes automation pretty hard on the CR packaging as well, because some of these things are only optimized for adults to open, and when you're talking about efficiency with what Luis and I do, it becomes extremely hard to open these things, and finding your touch points at the end of the day is actually really important. So along the process of, let's say, if you're bagging gummies, what's the hardest touch point? Is it counting the gummies? Is it bagging the gummies? Is it labeling the gummies? Like, what is it? You find what you're really good at in your production line and what you're super inefficient at, and then you work on the inefficiency. So at the end of the day, if it's for gummies, if it's really counting it, then you work on the counting aspect of it, and then you bag it and you seal it. But there are times where you have to use scissors to open up the bag, and it makes it hard with zippers the way they are now. It's nearly impossible to open by hand, let alone a machine.
Yeah, so I think that all ties into the customer experience and giving that consumer the great experience. And I have a great deal of experience in this because over the last 6 years, we've developed CR packages, primary packages, because we saw the shift away from the exit bag. And we could debate, I think with flour, maybe you need the CR package less versus gummies. I tend to think you need it more on the packaging itself, just for the risk. But I think you have to think about, when we're designing our packages at Contempo, things where you have to push down like that can be very tense on the wrist. So if you think about it, that needs to be part of the design process. We had our first CR package, which remains one of our best sellers, the Vault Box. You had a little key or other flat object, if you guys have seen it. You press it into the box to slide it open. And we literally had seniors in tears saying how this package makes them feel alive again, how every time they go to open up that package, they feel like there's something wrong with them and they feel disabled, and it reminds them of the fact that they have these problems. So this is it's a great question and a great point. I think there are options available, but I think the standards, the easiest options to automate, which is where a lot of people want to go, are these bags, are these things where you push down and turn, which can be difficult on the wrist with people who have arthritis.
I have one last thing to touch on. It's interesting that they're forcing, I guess because cannabis started out as medical, right? That they're wanting us to have CR packaging on everything, but there's no CR packaging on the alcohol bottle in my living room. Why do I need it on my cannabis?
There's no CR pouching on tobacco either, right?
Yeah.
So there isn't there. So there's great points that you bring up as well, and what Michael was saying. It begs to now the next question of for the government to answer whether is this really necessary, though, right? Especially for flour. As I was saying, hey, you're doing your gummies, you're doing things that could be. I mean, I have a 2.5-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I'll be, scared for them to, hey, this is a gummy bear, I get it, but are they going to go and chew on another flower? I don't think so, no. But the same, like, what stops them from people that consume tobacco in their homes to leave your pack of tobacco open? And what stops them from doing that, and why they should be different? Now, as you're saying, like, governments were scared. How should we regulate this? Let's go pharma grade, because that's basically, I guess, what Canada did, and this is what Europe is doing. So let's try to start from there, and you start seeing how certain products start going back into the legislation, thinking, is this really necessary? Now, The question now is the time that it's taking to realize that, right? Like that's the biggest problem. Like you wish you will be more on top of their things, you know?
The thing is, it's great that you brought up that you have kids, right? Like, look at the packaging. A lot of packaging, a lot of brands that are coming out with cannabis now. It's so towards the youth. It's literally targeting the youth. Like, why do I need a pancake packaging that's dripping on the side? Like, that's so enticing to a child that may get, you know, something that looks like a quote-unquote Skittles or some of these strain names that are just out there where they are targeting the youth, and tobacco's not allowed to do that. Alcohol's not allowed to do that. Like, that, you know, that type of stuff also is part of the safety aspect. Like, when are they going to start regulating, you know, a strain name for being too child-friendly, right? Or even packaging from being too child-friendly. Like, you know, I don't want to see a bag of Starburst with cannabis on it. Like, I don't want, you know, my child or my nephew grabbing that and then, like, you know, being confused at what's going on.
No, 100%. And again, like, I will be scared to think of my 2-year-old. I mean, she eats whatever she finds on the floor. That's the reality, right? So, and she goes into the dispensary and start getting whatever she gets. So you'll be mindful now. Again, as producers, as part of our industry, and I think that our goals is standardizing and bringing certain level of professionalism and safety to the industry itself. But that can be done mindfully, taking care of all the stakeholders, right? Children, consumers, producers, and users, and governmental legislation as well, to ensure that at the end of the day, it covers us all, because if we don't, it just gives the illegal market just continue selling or to continue having a place at the marketplace, right? So that's why we got to be mindful.
Michael, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I think these gentlemen said it so eloquently. I think we can move on with our last few minutes.
Absolutely. I want to just double back with you all and see if there are any other questions. Obviously, we didn't make packaging any easier to access for you, Miss, but I hope you got some of the answers and insights that you were looking for. I feel like conversationally, we just breached the tip of the iceberg here, so if anybody has questions, wants to carry any of these concepts forward, I highly recommend that you visit booths on the show floor of Contempo, of Paxiom, Leafypack, and Hemper to connect with these guys personally. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for making the time to share your expertise and insights on the stage, each of you for making the time to come hang out with us, and as always, the CWCBExpo and the hardworking team that empowers us to have these conversations in a safe space to do it all. So thank you to you all. Enjoy the rest of the expo, and again, make sure you stop by each of these guys' booths and say hello and continue the conversation.